Hey Younger Youth, it's Jess here again. Thank you so much for joining us for our fourth and final week of our series Resurrection Life. This episode today is called Faith in Action. Now for the past couple of weeks we have looked at hopes and dreams, we've looked at worship, the journey of faith, and now we're going to be exploring the question of what next? Because it's great to nurture your faith. It's great to take the time daily to ensure that you've got a close relationship with Jesus. But we're not called to keep that faith to ourselves. We're actually called to share it with those around us. In the Bible, there is a book called Matthew. It's one of the Gospels. And in the book of Matthew, chapter 28, it says, "Go and make disciples of all nations." In other words, go out, tell your friends, your family, your teachers, those around you about your faith in Jesus. Now, before we start thinking about ways to put our faith in action, I want you to know that it's not always going to be easy. When you're sharing your faith with others, when you put your faith in action, you might feel a bit embarrassed. And the people that you talk to, they might just say no if you invite them to church. But that is why it's so important to remember what it says in the book of Hebrews. In chapter 1, it says, "Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see." In young youth, it's so important to carry the hope that Jesus brings through the good times and also the really challenging times. And it says this later on in Hebrews chapter 6, it says, "Hope is an anchor for the soul." In other words, yes, your journey of faith will have its ups and downs, but we can trust and put our hope in the promises of God every step of the way. Now, when we read the Bible, we can read some of those promises. So here are some of the promises that God says. He promises that he can turn all situations for good. He promises that he has plans for your life. He promises that, yes, the journey might be tough, but through faith in him, we can have life everlasting. And that if we put our hope in him, even in the tough times, that hope will act as an anchor for us, reminding us to not give up on him, but to carry on the journey. And we're called to share that hope with our friends and family around us. Now, my good friend Talua, you'll probably recognise Talua. She did one of the talks last week. She's one of our incredible young youth volunteers at the 9:30 service at Brompton Road. She shared a talk with me on YouTube. She listened to this talk and she said, "Hey Jess, thought of you while listening to this, why don't you check it out?" And I listened to it the other week, and the pastor in it used an analogy. Now I've changed it a little bit, but it's a bit weird, but I hope it helps you like it helped me. He said, if you had a cure for a broken leg, for example, so if someone breaks their leg and you somehow have this cure that can heal them right there and then, you would want to share that with everyone, unless you're kind of selfish. I get that, no judgment here. But most of us, if we had a cure for something, we would want to share it with everyone around us. Now, we can share. We have something that is so much better than a cure for a broken leg. We can share the hope that comes with living a life with Jesus. I think that's so much cooler than anything. And there is a song that I've been listening to a lot recently. It's called "The Father's House." And in it, there is this line that says, "The story isn't over if the story isn't good. And failure is never final when the Father is in the room." Now that is one of the promises. That is the kind of hope that we can share with everyone around us. The kind of hope that says, if you're in a bad situation, if you put your hope and trust in Jesus, it doesn't have to be the end. That is not the end. Jesus' plans are always to prosper. Now that is a promise that I think is worth sharing. Now, my friend Zoey, I went to school with her. I met her in year 8. Now, she is actually the one that invited me to HTB when I was 16 years old. Now, Zoey must have invited over half of my year at school to church. Now, maybe 10 of those people, 10 or 15, said yes to that invite and they came along. You might think, 10 or 15, that is loads. Yeah, that is a lot of people, but that's only because she invited over like 60. Now, I just want you to think, if Zoey had stopped inviting people to church the first time someone said no to her, I would never have been invited. I'd have never have gone to HTB, I'd have never have done the Alpha course, I'd have never have met Jesus, and I'd have never have become a youth pastor here. It was because Zoey held on to that hope that we can have in Jesus, that my life was changed. That hope acted as an anchor for her soul, reminding her time and time again, don't stop sharing your faith, because for some of these people, that invite is going to change their lives. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, Jess, that's fine for you and it's fine for Zoey because people know that you're a Christian, but actually my friends don't know that I go to church. My friends don't know that I'm a Christian. And you want me to talk to them about faith? Now, younger youth, I want you to hear me when I say this. I'm not asking you to call up your friends and shout at them down the phone, telling them that Jesus died for them, and if they repent from their sins, they'll be saved, because that will probably scare them. If I got a phone call like that, I would be scared too. Younger youth, hear me when I say that when you share your faith, you don't have to be scary. You don't have to be weird. You don't have to change who you are. You don't have to start talking in that kind of church language that, let's be honest, no one really understands. If you want to share your faith, it could look like something like this. You could send your friends the link to the 4:30 live on YouTube that HTB do every Sunday. And you could send them that link and you could say, hey, I watch this every week and I think you might enjoy it. You're more than welcome to join us. That's it. That is sharing your faith. That is taking a step of faith, and that is putting your faith in action. Now, they might say yes and they might say no. But younger youth, the important thing is that you took that step of faith. The important thing is that you put your faith in action. Now, younger youth, I want to challenge you this week. There's a section at the end of the Young Youth Journal that says, how are you going to put your faith in action this week? You could send the 4:30 live link. You don't have to, but you could. You could text a friend and say, hey, I hope you're doing really well. I'm praying for you. It could be whatever you like. Now, be creative with it. Young youth, I really hope that you enjoy and that you have fun putting your faith in action this week. I hope that it doesn't feel like a duty, but I hope that it feels fun and exciting. Now, why don't you join us next week as we start a brand new series?